Hey, this is the Pokémon Pinball video. I'm gonna go ahead and make a deep dive into it, because my god, someone out there had to. If this video somehow ends up being less than an hour long, then with all sincerity, I am sorry. Released on April 14th, 1999 in Japan for the Gameboy Color, and developed by Jupiter and Tal Laboratory. Yeah, it's pinball with Pokémon, alright? I mean, people do definitely like this game, but also, what even is there to say? Bleh. Let's just say screw formalities and jump right into this. I've already made some other Pokémon videos if you want to hear me bitch for another 3 or so hours, but for now, this is Pokémon Pinball for the Game Boy Color. Well, first of all, the box art is pretty. Got a nice looking illustration of a pinball board with a bunch of Pokémon everywhere. The 2 L's in the logo being pinball paddles is a nice touch. And the Pikachu on it looks so freaking determined. Like, damn, what's he even looking at? Now, pinball is a game as old as time. You got a ball, 2 pedals, a bunch of random ball crap, and your goal is to rack up as many points as possible. All of that is still in full force in Pokémon Pinball. Instead of a regular ball, it uses a Pokeball, which makes a lot of sense in the game's context. But other than hitting the paddles, we can also tilt the machine itself. Tilting the pinball machine was like the original video game glitch, a method to move the ball around in ways that were never intended. But while it was initially an oversight, many would go on to consider it a central mechanic of the pinball experience. It's essentially the wave dashing of pinball. It wasn't intended to be there, but regardless, people are happy to have it. Basically what I'm getting at here is that in Pokémon Pinball, you are given the ability to tilt the machine, and it never once shames you for doing so. You can tilt the machine left, right, up, and not down because God hates you. So yeah, those are the basic controls here. And you know what? I will give the game credit in this one regard. It is a Game Boy game that allows you to freely customize its button layout. That is kind of insane and really helpful. The original Game Boy didn't have any shoulder buttons, making hitting the paddles a bit awkward, but playing it with a modern controller, I was able to pretty easily map the left and right shoulder buttons to the corresponding paddles, with the D-pad taking care of the tilting, which is definitely the go-to control method for this kinda game. Other than that, the original cartridge actually also came with a rumble pack, allowing you to really feel like you're playing pinball on the Game Boy. And I mean, yeah, it sure is rumble, alright? Pretty neat, I guess. But my favorite thing about it is how this Pikachu zaps the Psyduck to indicate whether the rumble is on or not. That was probably the most joy I harvested out of this whole ordeal. Sadly though, things like that are not very common here in the Pokémon Pinball dimension. There really isn't as much Pokémon charm as I would have liked there to be, which, especially coming after Pokémon Snap, is a bit disappointing. Yeah, there are a bunch of Pokémon on the pinball tables, but they're mostly just used to supplement regular pinball mechanics. Like, the bumpers are replaced with Voltorbs and Shelders, but functionally they are still bumpers. In that regard, Pokémon Pinball is basically the Anna and Elsa toothbrush of gaming. It may have these characters little girls and really weird people like, but at the end of the day, that's all just a mask. It is still a regular ass toothbrush. Like how this is still mostly regular ass pinball, and I am officially the first person in the universe to make that comparison. We have 2 boards to pick from, the red field and the blue field, both obviously named after the mainline Gen 1 games, Red and Blue. Interestingly though, the blue field is still the blue field in the Japanese version, and over there they got Pokemon Green instead of Pokemon Blue. So yeah, America keeps winning where it really matters. Both of these boards do share many of the same mechanics, while also having their own unique gimmicks to set them apart. But firstly, let's go over everything here that is consistent between both boards. I'm about to say the word ball a lot, so apologies in advance. When you start a game, you only have 3 balls, and you lose them if they fall out of the board. If you run out of balls, you have no right to go on. Now, a ball falling doesn't always necessarily mean you lose it. At the start of the game and during certain events, this little saver light will turn on, and if your ball falls while it's on, then you basically get a freebie. The same ball is launched into the machine again like nothing ever happened. And if that wasn't enough balls for you, if you play really well, then the again light will turn on, which is is like the saver, but it will only turn off after you lose your ball. Still, regardless of all of that, you don't want your ball to fall off the board, yet both the red and blue fields have these little holes on the sides, just begging the ball to go through them, and when it does, you better shake that machine like mad, because that ball might have just earned itself a one-way ticket to hell. However, if the ball does go through these holes, it doesn't always necessarily mean you're screwed. You've probably noticed these two Pikachus at the bottoms of each of them switching from side to side. The location of the Pikachu is determined by the last paddle you used, and you want the Pikachu to be where your ball is, because if that Pikachu is fully charged, then you'll get to hear it cry with the beautiful, beautiful Game Boy compression. Also, less importantly, it will launch your ball back into the safe zone. If you want Pikachu to bless you, however, then you need to make sure you've charged it, which you can do by launching your ball through this here spinner enough times, which luckily enough has a thunder meter next to it, letting you know just how full Pikachu is. These holes leading towards these Pikachus, as well as the two right next to them and the slingshot bumpers, are the out lanes and return lanes. Don't question me, that's what the manual calls them. They light up letters that spell out cave, and if your ball manages to go through all of them, then you, my friend, get to play a special game of slots in the bonus cave, and these slots can give you all sorts of fun rewards, ranging from more saver time, an extra ball, and of course, bonus points. As we all know, pinball originates as an arcade game, and at their core, arcade games are all about getting that sweet, sweet high score. You know, being the very best like no one ever was. The high score philosophy was something very important to game design in the early years of the medium, and heck, you could argue it still lives on to this day with stuff like speedrunning, but as I have said on this channel time and time again, getting a high score isn't the reason I play video games. Long story short, I'm a person who likes video games less so as entertainment and more so as art. For as absolutely pretentious as that may sound, if you want me to 100% your 10-year-long MMORPG, yeah sure, I'm working on it. But I am sorry, Pokémon Pinball, all of these numbers mean absolutely nothing to me. For what it's worth, we do have a leaderboard, with all of the preset scores being named after the companies that had their hands on this game. So this is how Nintendo ranks their subsidiaries. And I mean, yeah, I sure did beat all of them high scores, making me officially better than mean, but do I actually sound like I give a shit? Me not caring about the score basically completely undermines a bunch of the game mechanics here. Like, both of the boards have these bonus multipliers in the middle, and I don't give a crap. If you go through all 3 field multiplier lanes, you can upgrade your ball into a Great Ball, and then an Ultra Ball, and finally a Master Ball. Dude, that's awesome! And all it does is give you more score multipliers, meaning I could not care less. You know, maybe I would be more invested in Pokémon Pinball if the story was really something extraordinary, which is kind of a weird thing of me to say, considering that there is no plot here whatsoever. And to be fair, yeah, for a game like this, a compelling motive is not really needed. Still, I feel that seeing the game try to form some sort of cohesive narrative around this mess would at the very least be entertaining. So, you might think that there isn't really any point in playing this game, like, at all. However, I have purposely left out the main gimmick of Pokémon Pinball just so that we could all discuss it together at this very moment. Said gimmick, of course, being the Pokémon. Both pinball boards have a large circular loop at the top of them, just prime for you to chuck your ball into. And if you chuck your ball through them enough times, then some pretty neat shit happens. Launching the ball through the loop from the right lights up one of 3 get arrows, and doing so from the left will light up one of 3 evo arrows. Once at least 2 get arrows are lit up, you'll be able to launch your ball into either the Spellsprout or this shell there, depending on your chosen board. And doing so will initiate Catcher mode, where a Pokemon silhouette will appear in the middle of the screen, a timer will pop up, and you'll begin finally paying attention. Firstly, you'll need to hit the bumpers at the top 6 times in order to unveil the Pokemon silhouette, and then you just gotta chuck your ball at the Pokemon 4 times, and congratulations, you have just taken up adoption. Whichever Pokemon shows up is determined by a few factors. You can initiate Catcher mode with either 2 or 3 get arrows turned on, but you'll usually get rarer Pokemon if you've got all 3 of those suckers up. And other than that, it also depends on your location. At the beginning of a game, a roulette will spin, deciding which area will your Pokemon encounter pool belong to. Both the red and blue fields each have exclusive areas, and even the shared locations often have different encounter rates depending on your chosen board. Thankfully, however, you can swap out your location mid-game. Hitting the Poliwag, Psyduck, or Dactyros 3 times in rapid succession will initiate map move mode, where you have to hit whatever the game feels like telling you to, and then chuck your ball to the center of the field. Boom, new area. In fact, there are a few areas that could only be gotten to that way, but this here is another place I feel Pokémon Pinball is very much lacking in, and it kinda adds to what I meant when I said this is only a Pokémon game in name. You see, these Pokémon you collect, they are basically all the exact fucking same. Bounce on the bumper 6 times, hit the Pokémon 4 times, done. From Mewtwo to Magikarp, almost every single Pokémon works like this, which completely devalues their importance. You'd think catching Pokémon would unlock some cool special abilities to help you out, but no, these are all literally just JPEGs, which in my opinion is the absolute lamest way they could have incorporated Pokémon into pinball. The only area where some Pokémon differ from others is with how many times they can evolve. As you've likely pieced together by now, lighting all 3 Evo lights will let you get your ball into Slowpoke, as well as the elusive Evolution Cave, and it is there where you get to choose which of your Pokemon you'd like to evolve, as Evolution mode will ensue. And just like with capturing, every single Pokemon is evolved the exact same way. The game tells you where it wants your ball to be, and then you collect 3 things for the Pokemon. These could be either experience points, evolution stones, or Game Boy link cables. You know, they could have had some neat mechanic where for Pokemon who evolve by trade, the game would send you to the opposing board and ask you to do things there. You know, to reflect how trade evolutions actually work. But nope, you gotta get all the link cables. Once you get all 3 of the things, you chuck your ball to the center and there you go, all grown up. After catching a Pokemon, a single Pokeball icon will light up in the center of the board, and for evolving Pokemon, 2 of them will light up. And with all 3 of these up and running, you can enter a bonus stage. There are 5 of these in the game, and they all basically act as mini-bosses with a time limit, which are there to award you with a buttload of points. Both game fields only have 3 bonus stages each, with the first 2 being different on each one, and the third and final bonus board being shared between the 2. After beating all 3 bonus boards, the next time you'll enter the game will just loop you into the first bonus table. But with that out of the way, let's finally get into the intricacies of each individual board. I guess that in a normal game this would be the level design analysis section, except that this time I have even less dignity. Starting us off, the red field is mostly traditional pinball affair. We've got some loop-de-loops and places for you to screw up at. The main gimmick here is that the upper part of the board's terrain can occasionally shift depending on your actions. I like how this is indicated by this big old ditto over here. That's pretty cute. My main issue with this board is that you need to get your ball into the Spellsprout in order to catch any Pokemon. And my god, it can sometimes be near impossible to get it there. But otherwise, meh, it's fine. Compared to that though, the blue field is definitely the far wackier of the 2. It has a simpler design than the red field, with just a single loop and a big area in the middle. But the main gimmick this time comes in the form of the stash arrow. It will push your ball towards wherever it's pointing, which is usually just up and down. But if you're eligible for a Pokemon catch or evolution, the arrow will sometimes launch you into the respective hole in order to support your cause. While a tad frustrating on occasion, I do think I overall prefer the blue field, mostly due to its simpler layout making moving the ball around far easier. And with that, I've basically laid out most everything you would need to know about Pokémon Pinball. Annoyingly enough, it's one of those games that doesn't explain any of its mechanics. You're gonna need to read the manual for that. But I will be fair and say that starting the game having absolutely no idea what the hell is going on only to have every single aspect be practically second nature by the end of a 100% playthrough to be at the very least satisfying. And yeah, I want to complete this game 100%, damn it. And in order to do that, we'll first need to take care of all the bonus stages. From what I've seen online, most Pokemon Pinball fans consider beating all of the bonus stages to constitute as finishing the game regularly, so I set that as my first active goal. And let's get this out of the way right now. I am terrible at pinball. Like, if I had to pick the 3 types of games I am the absolute worst at, it would probably be sports games, first-person shooters, and pinball. Like, I just want the ball to get to a certain spot, but it just won't do it. And it doesn't help that the physics here are not exactly ideal. I find it weird how many goddamn pinball games came out for the original Game Boy, considering that pinball is a game very reliant on physics. Where your ball will go is less so determined by when you hit it, and more so by where it came from, and how fast it came. It's basically like if Sonic was an arcade game, but our issue here is that the Game Boy is weaker than a fucking toaster, so expecting it to produce near perfect ball physics is definitely on the lower side of realistic. Now, to be fair, the physics here do get the job done. The game works, but that's about the extent of that. And I'm sure it is way better than most other Game Boy pinball games, considering its late release and beloved status. But the lacking physics did definitely add to my lack of joy. Just getting to the bonus stages is a gigantic trial in frustration. There were so many times where the ball literally just launched itself into a pit in the speed of light. And remember, you need to get 9 Pokeballs to light up in a single game in order to even get into all of the bonus stages. It took me hours of attempts at this stupid game. This is absolutely one of the most maddening things I have ever attempted to do in a video game, even if it may not seem like it. The music does help in this regard, but it doesn't help a lot. The soundtrack here, in my opinion, is just kinda okay. While the tracks are all mostly fine, well, except for the options menu music, that is just straight up terrible. The issue is more so the lack of quantity. Your location isn't what determines the music, it's the table that does, and both tables only have 1 track each. The Redfield remixes the Viridian City theme from Red and Blue, and interestingly enough, the Bluefield features a remix of the Ecratic City theme from Pokémon Gold and Silver, which came out 7 months after this game. Now, a lot of the Gold and Silver music was composed long before those games came out, so I'm pretty confident that this track is a remix of the music from Gen 2 and not the other way around. Still, I do find it to be an interesting footnote, as this is technically where the track made its debut. Most of these songs are nice, even if I prefer the original versions of them over these remixes. But you know, after 5 hours, they do start to get obnoxious, making this annoying game somehow even more annoying. So much so that in the end of it all, the game won. I just for the life of me could not even come close to getting to the final bonus stage. So much so that by hour 8, I just said fuck it, and resorted to using save states in order to finish both boards. Yeah, I know, I am weak. I can beat Castlevania the Adventure without save states, no problem, but Pokémon Pinball is where I draw the fucking line. And I have heard horror stories about the difficulty of games such as Sonic's Pinball and Kirby's Pinball Land, so the fact that I am struggling with what is often considered one of the best pinball games, it's just like, man, screw pinball. Most of the bonus tables themselves are pretty neat. They each revolve around a single Pokemon or Pokemon evolution line, and mostly just involve hitting the Pokemon a bunch of times. However, each of the Pokemon have their own unique movement behaviors, making these all pretty enjoyable actually. Stuff like walking through a bunch of Diglets and getting money from a Meowth are all highlights. Actually taking the Pokemon's unique abilities and having them affect gameplay. I genuinely wish there was more of that here. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, as the final bonus game, the Mewtwo table, is one of the worst final bosses I have gone against in recent memory. All he does is just stand there, while protecting himself with a bunch of these weird dark orbs, which compared to the other bonus tables is already lame enough in it of itself. But here's the real kicker. In order to to defeat Mewtwo, you need to hit him 25 times, which initially may not seem that bad, until you realize that you only have 2 minutes to do so, which means that on average, you would have to hit Mewtwo once per 4.8 seconds, and with the bastard cat constantly protecting himself, that isn't exactly the easiest of things to do. But in time I did beat him, and finished Pokémon Pinball, except not really. We now need to complete the Pokedex. You see, Pokémon Pinball doesn't just include some of the Gen 1 Pokémon, it has all of them, from Bulbasaur to Mewtwo. The original 151 Pokémon are all here and accounted for, so in order to complete the Pokédex, you have to catch them all, and oh my god, if this isn't one of the most boring, repetitive and frustrating things I have ever done in a video game. All it is just the same thing over and over and over again, with the only difference being having to make sure you're in an area with Pokemon you haven't captured yet. Even using save states, this is still a gigantic drag. Some of the Pokemon here are absurdly rare. Imagine needing to roll 2 die and get double 6s, but every time you fail, instead of being able to just roll again then and there, you need to go all the way to a convenience store, buy some dice, and then come all the way back and try again. It is that infuriating. Evolving Pokemon is mostly easier than capturing them, as there is far less RNG involved. But then we have fucking Eevee. It is the only Gen 1 Pokemon with more than one Gen 1 evolution, but instead of doing something creative with that idea, they just made whatever evolution you get completely random. And Jesus Christ, it took me over an hour to get freaking Vaporeon. There is absolutely no joy to be had here. At the very least by this point, I gave up on listening to the game's soundtrack, and just popped up the Final Fantasy XIV OST in the background. And let me tell ya, it made things a hell of a lot more bearable. Still, this is something I would not recommend to anybody. All of the Pokedex entries are just recycled from Red and Blue anyways, so if you just have to get every Pokemon in a Gen 1 game, please for your own sanity make it that one, or just don't for all I care. The only unique Pokemon I do want to talk about is Mew. The game initially makes it seem like Mew isn't in it by capping off the dex at 150. However, lest you doubt, Mew is in Pokémon Pinball, but if you want to encounter it, then you're gonna have to jump through some hoops. Mew can only be found in the Indigo Plateau, which will always be the 5th area you travel to in both boards. But in order to encounter Mew, you need to have beaten Mewtwo in the same game, not once, but twice. If you game over after that, you lose your chance. Then and only then will you be allowed to encounter Mew, who has a 1 in 16 chance of appearing with all 3 Ghettos lit up. And the kicker at the end of all of this is that Mew is practically impossible to catch. Literally every other Pokemon only needs to be hit 4 times to be obtained. But if you plan to capture Mew, you'll need to hit him, and I'm not making this up, 1024 times. And remember that you have a time limit of 2 minutes, meaning that without cheats it is quite literally impossible. On the bright side, however, just seeing Mew will give you its Pokédex entry, so honestly I do like this. It's less of a fuck you, and more so just a neat detail that makes Mew more unique. Completing the Pokédex awards you with a silver crown you can see on the scoreboard. That's it. What, did you really think 100%ing Pokémon Pinball will give you some kinda cool reward? Ha! I spent over 20 hours torturing myself with this game, knowing full well that it would be a ginormous waste of time. But what can I say? The JRPG grinder within me pulled through, and thankfully was able to complete the game. And that was Pokémon Pinball. And yeah, I sadly didn't really like this one, guys. Let me put this up front. I do not think Pokémon Pinball is some kind of cheap soulless cash grab. There was definitely effort put behind this project. There's a reason I didn't completely tear into it like I did with something like Skick Raised. This is still leagues above something like that. But in order to make a video on Pokémon Pinball, I had to approach it in a way it was never really meant to be approached. This is meant to be something you pick up, play around round or two off and shut down. Trying to play it while having all of these frustrating goals in mind just paints it in a bad light. However, that's personally how I like to play video games. Without any goal in mind, I can't really ever see myself picking Pokémon Pinball up. And even setting personal taste aside, I still think that it could have been of a far higher quality. This definitely could have used a bit more time in the oven. Time to let the developers refine the physics, maybe add another table or two, and make the game more Pokémon, because as it is, this isn't Pokémon Pinball, it's Pinball with Pokémon. If you happen to be somebody who likes both Pokémon and Pinball, then I guess it wouldn't hurt to give it a shot. But for the love of God, do not even think about 100%ing it. After playing a round or two, you would have basically seen everything this game has to offer. If you only like Pokémon or only like Pinball, then you definitely already have far better alternatives than this. And if you like neither Pokémon and Pinball, then I'm not sure why you're even watching this video. Well, maybe you're watching because you like my content, in which case, thank you. In general, thank you all so much for watching this video. Our next Pokemon game on the dock is something that is far different than what we've looked at today. Pokemon Stadium for the Nintendo 64. We're nearing the end of the first generation, everybody, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, have a good one.